In the shadowed corners of existence where the faintest glimmers of hope struggle to breach the suffocating gloom, one cannot help but dwell upon the solemn truth that life, unfazed and indifferent, carries on. It's a melancholy realization, an inescapable descent into the depths of despair, where the weight of our insignificance hangs heavy like a shroud. In this vast tapestry of existence, we are fleeting specters, mere whispers in the relentless wind of time. We strive, we suffer, we love, and we lose, all within the confines of this enigmatic dance. Yet the world continues its tireless pirouette, casting long, jagged shadows across our hearts. As we stand at the precipice of our own mortality, we grapple with the stark truth that the universe is unburdened by our very presence. It carries no sympathy for our trials, no solace for our suffering. Each day, as the sun rises and sets, as seasons turn and tides ebb and flow, it's a chilling reminder that life persists, irrespective of our joys or sorrows. In our darkest hours, we may feel as though we are adrift in an endless abyss, swallowed by the void of our existence. Like a relentless undertow, the ceaseless march of time pulls us ever closer to the inevitable end. We witness the world slipping away as if through trembling fingers, and the cruel irony of it all is that it continues without us, unfeeling and unthinking. Yet amid this somber narrative, there is a haunting beauty. It lies in a profound realization that we are part of a grand, indifferent cosmos connected to every living thing that has ever gazed up at the same indifferent stars. We share the same fate, the same mortality, and in that shared fragility, there is a quiet, tragic camaraderie. So as we traverse this desolate path, let us not despair entirely. Let us find solace in the knowledge that despite the darkness and abyss that beckons, we have the power to infuse meaning into our fleeting moments. We could choose to love, choose to create, to strive, and in doing so, we defy the void, if only for a brief, beautiful moment. For in the end, it's not the void that defines us, but the flickering, fragile light we cast upon it as life inevitably goes on. This is life. This is football. And this is Football and Other F Words. My name is Zach Lyons. You can follow me on X at FWordsPod. He's Mike Herndon. You can follow him on X at Mike Herndon NFL. You can read about how he thinks the Titans should fix the Titans' offensive line, which is all meaningless, much like the life. And that is at paulkarski.com. Go subscribe over at stackingtheinbox.com. We have all kinds of stuff for you to read. Could it be time that Ryan Tannehill gets benched? That's from Trajan Watkins. We have data. We have props to Kevin Stefanski because he did such a good job against the hapless Tennessee Titans, which is all what we're going to talk about. Mike, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all going to die and nobody's going to care how many Titans Super Bowls there were, which will be zero.
Yes.
So that's fine.
For those that do not understand, that is a long time ago gag, kind of like what was it? Mike's white wide receiver corner.
Yes.
That is a fishbowl of despair. That's from a fantasy football podcast we did many years ago. So it's a callback. We like to bring that back. Okay. Oh man, Mike, what a day. Sunday was. It was we ended up at where is like it's not Broadway Brew House anymore. It's like Brew Pub and Grub
Oh,
and all this stuff. And we're that in West End, me and our friend Matt, mutual friend Matt. And I tell you, what a disheartening. He left. He just left. Luckily,
don't blame
Lauren
him.
was still there, but he was just like, I'm out. And I don't blame him because that was, to me, there's the snow game with Green Bay and Tennessee. There's the Baltimore Ravens 19 sack day on Marcus. But this was like one of the worst, if not the worst performances. Because I felt like this is the first time that Vrabel just kind of was like in over his head for some reason. And it felt like that this entire team wasn't mentally tough, which has been Vrabel's MO. Like, despite if this team sucks or not, you could tell they fought to the very end, and it felt like they gave up after the first quarter.
Yeah, it definitely felt like the defense gave up. Like to me, the defense came out strong. They were playing well. Now they couldn't tackle to save their lives and probably missed like 6 sacks on Deshaun Watson because they couldn't freaking tackle him. Which we can talk about later too. But uh it felt like as it got into like halftime, especially, and then right after the second half, it felt like the defense was mailing it in. It felt like they were like, all right, we've had enough. We know this offense isn't going to score 10 points. So what's the point of even trying here? So it definitely felt like it was a letdown from an effort standpoint in the second half. Yeah, it just felt like they did quit. They just knew. They knew they weren't gonna get it done that day, which is disappointing, especially against the Browns. Like the Browns are fine. I think the Browns are a playoff contending type team, but they're not one of the best teams in the NFL. They're not a Super Bowl contender, right? So it's disappointing to see them fall that short against competition that's just kind of meh. Yeah. We thought the Titans were gonna be meh like that. We thought that this was an even meh battle. And
Yeah.
it's
That's
not.
what's funny is like everybody except for me, but we're all wrong, thought that it was going to be a close win. And I thought it was going to be a double digit win for the Tennessee Titans. But ultimately, everybody was wrong because it was a double digit win for the Cleveland Browns, which makes no sense. And, I talk about being mentally tough. The first words out of Jeffrey Simmons' mouth is blaming the refs. Well, the refs were bad all the way around. And it's a mutually bad for both sides, right? Like to me, that I walked away not even thinking about the refs, other than man, they were just an all-around terrible crew that should all get fired. Like that's how bad at their job they
That
are.
is horrible.
And the most egregious call was obviously on the Browns. And like I say something, it called or prevented a touchdown. There were defenders in the area that pulled up because they heard the whistle. Like it's
Right.
not a guarantee that Amari Cooper. I want to. I heard PK say that this morning. I've heard a couple people say it as well, but PK said it last and so it's freshest on my mind. Let's slow down. We don't know it cost him a touchdown, much like we don't know if it cost Chig a touchdown, right? I mean, like Chig, nowhere near his
Oh,
knees
he
came down,
was 100% down. Chig
but
was 100% down.
no, he
I've
wasn't down.
yeah, he was. I've got a still shot that I mean, there's just zero that would defy the laws of physics
the
for him to
The
not have
replay,
his
everything
head
that
or
they
shoulder
showed
on the
showed that
ground.
he wasn't down.
No, he was down. He
The
was
knee
down.
was not down.
The knee wasn't, but his head and shoulder were on the ground.
You're gonna have to post that, Mr. Screenshot, going up again, going away from all that. But I
And
didn't think that
I
anybody.
will agree too with this comment down here from A Vining that Cooper two-hand pushed off on that play too,
Yeah,
and it wasn't called. So like, yeah, I was it a miss that he didn't step out about? Sure. Did
it's a
it
pretty
matter?
massive miss.
No,
No, but I mean, like it's just a pretty massive miss for
it
like a ref
was
crew in general.
because it wasn't even close. Like
No,
not
it
even remotely
wasn't.
close.
And I didn't see the I guess Texas A&M game clip until after Braden brought it up. I went and found it, and Jimbo Fisher's like literally on the
5 yards
field
onto
with
the
the
field.
like this is ridiculous. But anyway, I find this team not appealing in the slightest. Like I find that not having any kind of sympathy for anybody on this team
Yeah,
after that loss because like nobody played hard. I think Tannehill's probably the guy that played the hardest, and he's the guy that gets shit on the most from all the fans who expect him to be something that he's never been. He has
right.
never been this this Patrick Mahomes esque level, Josh Allen. And I get it that you want that, but that guy is possibly not on this team. We don't know really what Levis can be, but
Yeah,
there's nobody. I know that there's people who are like, well, you can't elevate a bad offensive line. A quarterback can work with a bad offensive line if the game plan is sound, and that's where like I first go to the game plan. And I understand there's only so many tight ends you can cram on one side, and you can't do it every play. But I just felt like they had a real hard time picking their spots and keeping the team motivated. And that's the part of the coaching job is to find the spots, to find the mismatches, to call plays. And this is on both sides of the ball. It's not just offense. To find different ways to get things going. It felt like they got away from the quick passing game, and then when of course, they did attempt a quick passing game, Traylon Burks is dropping NFL level catches. It's just like nothing. It's one of those days
Yeah.
where I'm not sold that this team cannot rebound. Like I know a lot of people are really down in the dumps. I know my facetious monologue at the beginning makes it seem like I'm down in the dumps about this team. But I don't I feel like it's just one of those games where everything fucking went wrong, but it was also everything went wrong and it starts with stuff that was actually in the Titans' control. So I'm not like totally like abandoned ship, let's get Drake May next year and stuff like that. Even I did find it funny that the Titans PR decided to put the dog named Tank on their quarterback
Oh
out
God,
today,
I didn't see that today.
oh yeah, so it's a National Adopt Dog Week, which we adopted our newest one, Havana, and so I encourage everybody to do it. There's all kinds of different rescue networks and humane societies to go choose from, but the dog on his shirt that he wore out there is named Tank.
Yeah,
On a
can't do
team
that.
that is on a team that is not looking very good. Like, hello, Titans PR. Or like, what
Yeah.
are we doing here?
I mean, that dog's got, I'm sorry, but that dog's got to be named Hank today. Like, we aren't calling him by that name. Like, not to the media.
Nick Lombardi put Tannehill Tank and had the handshake emoji. Last ditch effort to avoid getting put down.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
But like, I feel like Tannehill's the only one that was like truly like in that game. I mean, like he was like, I have tried everything I can, and my receivers are failing me. My offensive line is failing me. My tight ends. I mean, but I feel like it starts with the top. Where are your senses, or where do your opinions lie on the job and of the game plan? Because it felt to me, Mike Vrabel and the entire staff planned for an entirely different team than the Cleveland Browns.
I mean, obviously, it wasn't a good game plan. Like, you get beat 27-3 and set a franchise record for least yardage gained. It's not a good game plan, whatever it was, regardless of execution. But I don't know. I kind of feel like, could they have done some stuff different? Sure. Like the quick passing game and intermediate, passing game. I think there's some validity to that. That they should have, probably could have done better with that. I also do think that there's something to the idea that, like, if you look at the wide receivers they've got, none of those guys are good separators in the short to intermediate areas. Like Treylon Burks, DeAndre Hopkins at this point in his career, he's an okay separator because he will get physical and push guys off, but he's not an elite separator for sure. And then nobody else is worth even mentioning in that conversation. So I think there's something to the idea that, like, they've got guys that are more built to take shots down the field, and that's what they were trying to do. But like, I honestly will say you've got to help Andre Dillard more. Why were you leaving Andre Dillard one-on-one to block Myles Garrett? I charted it out for my article at paulkarski.com this week. 25 dropbacks that were like real dropbacks, not screen passes. And out of those 25, 14 of them, Dillard had chip help, either from a back or a tight end. That's a super high number for a guy who is supposed to be your best tackle, right? Like, Chris Hubbard needs help, and he did get a lot of help too, but it's really hard to help both of your tackles on every snap, right? Like, because it's not like Hubbard starred in this game. Like, he gave up 2 sacks of his own, and probably would have given up more if the Titans had, not helped him more. But it's one of those things where you just can't help on every play, because then you're playing 3 against 7 on the back end. Like, and you don't have receivers who can separate and beat coverage, and they can double team literally everyone if they want to do that, if you're going to keep guys in the block all the time. So I understand, maybe pick your spots better. Maybe, don't leave Dillard one-on-one against Garrett on that, play where you could not take a sack. I get that. I think that's valid criticism, but you can't just say help him every single play, because it's not a tenable offensive solution.
Mm-hmm.
There's your game plan can't be, we're going to have to use 7 guys to block on every play leaving us 3 eligible receivers to mess around with. Like that can't be your game plan. It just is not feasible for that to be the case. So at
Which,
some point,
yeah,
Andre Dillard has to put on his big boy pants and block somebody one on one. And yes,
that's what
it's a
he's
bad
supposed to
matchup,
do, right?
right?
Like it's and look, if you look at it, poor Andre Dillard has like I think the 8th. He's tied for 8th or 7th, according to a chart PFF Moo put out, Timo Riske or something like that. He has like he's had the 8th hardest set of assignments, but what's funny is that like all 3 people that have faced the hardest assignments are all people who face Myles Garrett. So it's like Dan Moore was put on an island too, and
Yeah.
Steelers fans were mad as well. My big thing was I kind of expected. Okay, we saw Justin Murray get called up, right? Like he was one of the practice squad active players that were called up. Instead of using 2 tight ends, could you not have used an offensive lineman? Like, why not use a second offensive lineman in some of these spots, or maybe even more of these spots to free up like a couple of receivers instead of using 2 tight ends? That's just, something that I thought they were going to do to begin with. I thought going in this was like, well, I mean, they got, you know, offensive linemen they could just throw out there instead of having to use tight ends. But it just seemed like it goes, this has been a Vrabel staple. And it's not just Dennis Daly, but we also saw, I don't know if you caught the press conference today. Did you get the press conference with
No, I
Vrabel?
didn't get to see any of that.
It was pretty good. Vrabel and Tannehill both said some really nice, informative stuff. It wasn't all coach speak. There was a lot of coach speak,
Yeah.
but basically Vrabel's whole thing is do your job. Okay. Some people are just not good at their job. And I don't think that Vrabel understands that like I think he sees someone is bad at their job, but he thinks, well, pull you up from your bootstraps and rise above it. And like, there's just some people that can't. And I'm to the point where it's like, you got to try something new. And that was the part of your article today was what are the fixes? And we talked about some of the fixes last week. We talked about this whole scenario, and I quizzed you and polled you, and you've changed your mind since then, which is
I
allowed.
have.
And we talked about it on a football show on Monday. I don't know if any of these fixes will work, but if you really care about player health, which Vrabel tends to say he does, you got to do something with Andre Dillard other than, oh, shucks, you didn't do your job this week. Hey, do your job this week, man. Do it.
Yeah.
You got to do your job. That's what we pay you for. Other teams would just probably have already benched his ass.
Yeah, I think they've gotta do something here quick. Because I mean it
And it
is
all hinges on Skoronski being healthy, I think. But like,
right.
I wouldn't mind putting Justin Murray out there. I guess at this point, something.
Yeah. I mean
Kind of like
Murray.
Raven Clark and Dennis Daly.
Yeah.
Just give me,
Yeah.
just show me a sign that you actually fucking care. Like,
Right.
that's where I'm at right now. Like, I don't need, you to go out and trade for Trent Williams. I just need you to show that you recognize piss poor play and that you have to try and change it.
Yeah. And I mean look, that's what this is the exact reason why before the season I kept saying like Andre Dillard is their most important player, and like whether Andre Dillard succeeds or not is critical to like what this team can do from a success standpoint.
It'd
And
be nice also if, it'd be also nice if Tannehill would roll out to his right instead of out to his left, which is the worst place for him to roll out to.
yeah, well, look, and we can get into that conversation too. And that Dillard, okay, two things that I think are true and really are the reason that the Titans offense looks like it does right now. You can hide one bad tackle. And I think that's what they've been trying to do with Chris Hubbard. They've been helping him a lot. They don't leave him alone. But you can't hide 2 bad tackles. Like, you just can't. You've got to have someone that you can trust. You can slide protection. You can do everything like that. But you've got to have a guy you can trust to slide away from, you can trust to block one-on-one. And yes, you are going to have to block guys like Myles Garrett sometimes. And look, are they going to play Myles Garrett every week? No. But Trey Hendrickson's a damn good pass rusher. He will put Andre Dillard in a clown suit this week. I guarantee you that's going to happen.
Yeah, but I mean, like, isn't it, basically he's already in a clown suit, so we
Well,
got we got to come up with some
he's gonna
words
put the
like
big red nose
the
on
big red
him,
nose,
yeah, to
maybe
go with
paint
his
his
clown suit.
face.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, that's just gonna happen. So they can't hide two bad tackles. That's going to be a problem. It's going to continue to be a problem as long as that is the case. Now, I think you could hide a bad tackle and a bad guard. So, like, if you wanted to put, that's why I've kind of switched what my thinking on Skoronski is. I think out of the guys on the roster, the guy that I would actually trust the most, and this also has something to do with watching ratings
Whew.
this week, because I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
I saw
Radens
ratings
was
get
okay. Like,
blown back several
yeah.
times too, and I'm like, come on, man. And he's got the same problems Dillard has, maybe not to that level, but like anchor and his punch, everything like that, his ability to stay balanced in his pass sets, like those are issues with Raiden. So I would rather see him than Dillard at left tackle, but I'd probably most rather see Skronsky at this point, because I do think Skronsky just has this like ability to figure it out that I think he would do well enough. Like he would at least compete to the point where like he wouldn't be a total disaster over there, So would he struggle? I think sometimes against longer pass rushers. Sure, I think that would be true. But I don't think he would be nearly as bad as what we've seen from Dillard. And you just can't have it be that bad at both tackle spots. You just can't.
Well,
Um,
my thing is like it's kind of like I'm starting to struggle. It's kind of like with John Robinson, and I started struggling coalescing their idea of a philosophy of the players that he drafted, the players that he signed, and winning. Like I couldn't find it. I felt like they were just doing stuff that doesn't make sense, and I feel like that's where we're at with the Titans. Right, a lot has been made of stopping the run and getting the run game going. Well, that's not today's NFL. And 78 yards, I don't know if it's really stopping the run. As how they want to do it. But like the part of this is the problem is they want to build inside out on the offensive line, which was a big thing. Well, that's fine, I guess, but like why do they not think left tackle and right tackles are the more important than anything else? Like that doesn't I
it doesn't make
struggle
sense.
with the philosophies that they are throwing out there and how they're going to be able to sustain and maintain a consistent level of success. And they're not. I mean, you can't discount the data points that showed up towards the end of the year last year. Those have to be taken into the data points that you're seeing this year to some degree. I mean, obviously there's different varying degrees of information there. I struggle because I know Mike Vrabel is a fantastic head coach. And I know that for the Titans to progress into a modern NFL team, that he's going to have to change or he's going to have to go. But I don't have faith in Amy Adams-Strunk to find a adequate replacement that's not going to pull you back even further. So like
Yeah.
I'm just struggling with philosophy, with coaching, game planning, and this goes back into now looking at, the personnel moves they made. Now listen, Andre Dillard was like the best option of a bad set of options.
Right.
Because you're not paying Mike McGlinchey, who's a right tackle, to come in and play left tackle and all that. And you could maybe make the argument that maybe instead of going Skoronski, they should have gone to a tackle at 11 if offensive line was higher on their board. But obviously it went C.J. Stroud, Peter Skoronski, and Will Levis, according to what they said or what they have alluded to. But at some point, I don't know, man. Like I'm struggling with all these different opposing forces inside my head and inside my heart.
Yeah, I mean it's I totally get where you're coming from, because it is difficult to reconcile some of this stuff, and I think you do have to take into account last year, because it would be different if the problems were different, but the problems are the same, right? Like at the end of the day, like there's
Can't stop
different
anybody
stuff
throwing the
going
ball.
on.
You can't stop anybody preventing you from throwing the ball. I mean,
Exactly.
it's the same
Like
stuff.
you can stop the run, great. Happy for you. You don't run consistently because your offensive line isn't consistent. You can't pass block to save your life, and you're a funneled to passing in on defense. Like the Titans' run defense, in a way, hurts them because they discourage teams from running the ball so well that they just throw it, and it's not a problem for teams to throw it on the Titans, right? Like Deshaun Watson went 27 of 33 in this game and looked like vintage Deshaun Watson for the first time since he's been on the Browns. That is not a good sign for this secondary, and it's like that's the frustrating thing because the whole offseason we said, oh, well, now they went and got Sean Murphy Bunting to kind of help stabilize the corner group. McCreary's heading into year 2. You're going to have Fulton in a contract year, and they go and get Chris Harris, which everyone, agreed it's a great hire, well thought of. Bring him in. He's going to fix it. He's going to fix the coverage on the back end, and this is really going to gel all together now.
It looks more the same.
It looks the same. It looks exactly the same.
I think you could see why maybe Chris Harris never got a defensive coordinator job. Like sometimes you just see why certain coaches didn't get that promotion. And I'm not saying that he's not a good coach, or I'm not saying that he's the reason or anything, but it just kind of feels like if you're seeing nothing new, and what does he do?
Yeah.
And PK what is his job besides, helping out with the quarterback, seeing coverages and stuff, but what is his job? And all Vrabel said was oh, he's a good coach. Glad to have him on the staff. Okay, so does he not do anything? I mean, and I will say this, in defense of Chris Harris and in defense of the secondary, it's really only one guy that is really fucking everything up for everybody.
Mostly,
and really two guys. It's Christian Fulton and Trey Avery, who Christian Fulton screwed up in week 1 and week 3. Trey Avery just got picked on in week 2. It's really just them. I feel like if you just subtract them out of the equation and maybe you just play McCreary, SMB, and Molden in the slot, maybe that's better than even having Christian Fulton on the team or even on the starting roster. And maybe that sounds crazy to everybody, but I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm just I don't know, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, or maybe they just need to do, they need to get your boy, year 3 Caleb Farley out there.
Gotta get him healthy, man. Year 3, baby.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same problems. And they address the tackle spot, and with Dillard, and obviously gave him a contract that's going to be a mistake.
By the way, a contract that was they hung their hat on his pass blocking ability.
Right, that's the crazy thing.
So wild. Everything that could go wrong keeps going wrong. It's almost like a comedy at this point.
Because when I wrote about Dillard, I was I'm not remotely convinced that he's going to be a really good left tackle for them, but I was I'm sure he's going to be okay in pass protection. And no, he is not okay in pass protection. In fact, he's really bad. He's worse than Dennis Daly so far in pass protection. So
I mean, listen, I tried to defend Dillard. It's kind of like trying to defend Willis for as long as possible, and there's just no defending him. I want him off the team.
He's awful.
I'd be okay with just them cutting him right now because I don't know. There's no place for him on the offensive line. Unless you're going to put him at guard or put him at tackle, but I don't even think that's a real solution. I think your best 5 is probably Skoronski. Your best 5, Skoronski, Radens, which is not great. Aaron Brewer, Daniel Brunskill, who's awesome, and I've told you he was always going to be awesome. And
he has been good. I'll admit he's been good.
And NPF, which again, kind of like Dylan Radens, I don't really know if that's a good thing or not. That's your best 5, but that's your best 5.
Yeah, I don't trust NPF helps anything when he comes back. Now, I think he'll be better than Hubbard. I do. But I don't think he's going to be good. And I don't know if I want him playing left tackle either. I mean, that he was not great at right tackle, and that was the position he played better at Ohio State of the two. He played one season at right tackle, one season at left tackle. He was better the season he was at right tackle, which was the first season, which makes you think that maybe he's just better over there. But yeah, I'm not convinced that that's going to fix it. Could it make it better? Like, I think maybe there's a scenario where it's like Skaronski at left tackle, Radens at left guard, Brewer, Brunskill, Petit Frere, and maybe that stabilizes a little bit and like because it's not like the tight like we know they aren't going to be the Eagles' offensive line this year, right? Like they're not going to have plays where like Tannehill's sitting back there for 13 seconds, just like, checking his watch, reading, sipping some coffee and then throwing the football down the field like Jalen Hurts does. But they just need to not be horrendous, right? Like, just don't be horrendous. That's what we talked about all offseason was just be okay. If you can get to average, you can be
Started
okay.
out really good, and they're just nosediving. And listen, I said it on a football show. It may start getting better on the stat sheet and on the field, but that's because they're going to be eventually facing lesser competition. Like they're not going to be facing Myles Garrett, and after Trey Hendrickson, I think the only real threat is TJ Watt. Will Anderson may be that guy already. We'll see.
Yeah.
But like that's about it for elite pass rushers. It's Hendrickson,
They're
TJ
gonna see
Watt.
Brian Burns. There's gonna be some ones in there. Jalen Phillips.
I mean, Brian Burns is kind of having a down year. Jalen Phillips maybe, but there's different ways to they're not guys that are Myles Garrett and TJ Watt.
Right. Yeah.
And that is my biggest point is that they're not going to be those two guys. And maybe no Joey Bosa, though that's a good thing. But that also is like putting pig on lipstick, right? I mean, or wait a minute, putting lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
You're just it's not doesn't mean that Andre Dillard got better. It just means the competition got worse. Now, can he get better? I'm not putting any money on it, but I mean, it's possible, right? It's possible that maybe him and Skaronski just work better than him and Dillard or Braden's, maybe. But that nothing is stopping Myles Garrett. Andre Dillard is not stopping Myles Garrett. Like he's not going to stop TJ Watt, and teams are going to key in on that left side. They're just going to. And
the book is totally out too, right? Like rush.
It was out week one. Like it was out week one.
Like you don't have to do anything but rush speed to power. That's all you need to do because you're going to be able to shove him back in Tannehill's lap. Like he can't handle it. He can't do it. So if you've got
all you
one
need
guy,
to do is tackle Christian Fulton, and you'll complete almost every pass.
All
you need to do is rush against Andre Dillard, and you're probably in the backfield about 2.5 seconds. Like that's it. That's all you got to do.
It's bad. It's bad. And it puts a cap on the team, too, because, like, I don't know. Unless that combination that I just mentioned just somehow comes together, turns into a decent unit, and then the passing game starts to click and the running game gets going a little bit. That's the only path forward where this team actually becomes competitive this year because you can't compete for anything besides, like, winning 7 or 8 games if you can't block anybody, like if you can't block the good teams, right? Like I don't care if you can block the terrible pass rush, like that's great. You're able to block, the opposite version of what you are as an offensive line. But once you play the good teams, you're never going to end up having a situation where you can run offense with this kind of pressure constantly.
You get in the playoffs versus the Chiefs with Chris Jones. Good luck.
Yeah, Chris Jones would line up over Andre Dillard and just throw him at Ryan Tannehill like every snap. Like just pick him up, toss him in his lap. It'd be ridiculous.
And like I was kind of talking about it because I held a Florida State minus 1.5 gambling ticket, and I was and Braden's a big Florida State guy as far as this year in college football, and I was like, why aren't they winning? I'm getting all pissed as I'm watching the game at the barbecue contest. And he goes, well, Clemson's such a good team. I was like, no, Clemson's okay. They're all right. Well, they'll win 9 teams. So that's an above average team. I argued on Monday that like, just because you have a good record doesn't necessarily mean you're a good team. It means that you played a good schedule to get you enough wins to make yourself look like a good team. Like the Jaguars, right? Like that Jaguars 9-8 team Sure, they made it into the playoffs, but were they really a good team, or did they get the benefit of the schedule? And there's a scenario where the Titans are 9-8 this year because the AFC South is like the worst division possibly ever. And they're probably going to have a favorable schedule there. They get to play the Panthers. They get to play the Falcons. There's the hapless Steelers offense. I mean, there are teams that they're going to play. They should win. It may not be pretty, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're a good team. It's like when they were on that was a 5-game win streak last year, and they were beating the Raiders. And you're like, oh, the Raiders,
Texans.
we'll see if the Raiders are a good team later. And I said, this team sucks. I'm telling you, this team sucks. And they ended up going on a big losing streak. Now, it's out of their control what really happened. They played in close games, but this team does not look like this team is healthy. There is no injury excuse to fall back on right now. And I am not entirely sold that I think this team could still win 9 to 10 games and be a playoff team by just that. Like, not a legit contender playoff team, but just like that team that made it in. They're like, maybe we should rethink these conference winners automatically getting a home field playoff game like that, or division winners, like that kind of team.
Yeah, I honestly don't think the Titans are going to the playoffs this year. I think
At this point, I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't think it's happening. I think they're already leaking oil this early, and I just don't know if it's going to get any better. I really don't. Before last year, I probably would have said, yeah, it'll get better because Mike Vrabel teams usually get better as the season goes along. But last year came, and last year they got much, much, much worse as the season went along. So I don't know if it's like,
at this rate, they're asking Tannehill to just like get cut in half.
oh yeah, which could happen. I mean, and look, I brought this point up on Twitter too, and I think it's important. I think Tannehill is part of the problem from the pass rush standpoint, in that like Tannehill is perfectly fine as a quarterback if you can protect him, because he's accurate, he's fearless, attacking tight windows, attacking downfield. He throws a good ball. He mostly gets the ball where he's supposed to. So he can be good. We've seen him be good with good protection and a good offense around him. But if you put him behind a leaky offensive line, that dude is a sitting duck. Like, he's one of the easiest sacks in the NFL. He's like Matt Ryan last year. Now he's faster. He's got straight line speed, but he has no acceleration. Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, he has no acceleration. Like, there's no like quick twitch to Ryan Tannehill. And there never has been. Like, this is who he's been for a long time. But when you put him behind a bad offensive line, he takes sack after sack after sack, because have you seen him even like 5 times in his entire time with the Titans step out of a sack, like break a tackle? Like, I remember the one against the Texans. The one against the Texans that was big, that
he did one last year that he got out of that was almost like that. And I cannot remember who it was against, but he did one like that. But I mean, we're talking,
you almost fall on the floor when it happens, right?
Like, but let's be clear that I think there's more. I think there's maybe 5. I think we could possibly find 5. But that's 5 escape sacks versus like what is probably like 150 sacks altogether.
Right. And Deshaun Watson escaped 5 sacks on Sunday, right? Like, right. I mean, there are levels to it. And that's why, like, I do feel like there's a give and take with the young quarterbacks and everyone calling for Tannehill's job and everything like that, which I do think is too early. I think the problem, they need to try to fix the problem first. Which is the protection and the offensive line issues, which is the primary issue. And then if you can't fix it and you just have to live with the fact that Andre Dillard's going to put a defender into your backfield like within 2 seconds on a regular basis, maybe you do need to look at the young guys, because they could avoid that sack and maybe extend the play. But there's also the give and take of, like, those guys both take longer to throw the ball. We know from preseason, PFF charting data and everything like that, those guys take much longer in the pocket. Like, they're sitting there holding the ball for 3+ seconds consistently, which puts more stress and more pressure on your offensive line to hold up. So there's definitely a give and take, but at some point, I don't know, if the wheels come off over the next 3 weeks and they lose three games against the Bengals, Colts, and Ravens, are coming back from London with a 1-5 record, and the offensive line's still a mess. I don't know. At that point, I'd be fine with making the move to Willis or Levis, whoever they think is appropriate, and just seeing if that helps at all. Like, and not even. You almost don't even care at that point if it helps for this year, because you're playing for next year at that point. You're 1-5. Maybe you could win the division if the
Why is
division
1-5 and 2-4 such a big difference? Because
I
I've
don't
heard
know. It
people
just feels
say,
different.
does it feel different? Because I've just heard people say, well, if you're 2-4, you could still keep Tannehill, and maybe after the bye you get pieces back and you feel better. But like 1-5 is like, and Tannehill's not even really been the issue for two of the games, right? I mean, he's an issue because he's a liability because of because he's a liability because he can't make plays or extend plays with his legs behind a porous offensive line. But if you really look at what he was able to do with the throws that he was able to make, he's not been that bad. Which brings me to really Treylon Burks, and I want to be careful because I don't want it to sound like
before we move off of the 1-5 thing.
Yeah,
there has not been a team that's made the playoffs after a 1-5 start.
Well, that's true. I mean, like, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, so that may be the reason. Whereas there have been teams that have done it from 2-4.
I look at it from a standpoint of with Treylon Burks that, and I want to choose my words carefully because I don't like comparing him to AJ Brown because that's the lazy thing and the thing that everyone wants to do. And look, if you are looking for us to spend 20 minutes on John Robinson sucks because he traded AJ Brown, you got about like 15 episodes to go listen to, like, in our catalog.
Yeah.
Everybody agrees the AJ Brown trade was a bad trade. Okay. Disclaimer. But Treylon Burks is not acting like a number one wide receiver in the slightest. And my concerns with Treylon Burks is that he shows up for one spectacular grab every 4 or 5 games. He's dropping easy passes. He is not able to get away in any and create separation. And when he can't create separation, I mean, at this point, wanting Treylon Burks to even be Corey Davis seems like a godsend for this team. And I get that some people are like, well, you can't give up on, a player, this early in his career. And, well, he was injured last year. Well, injuries are part of the problem. Him being out of shape was part of the problem. Him being soft is part of the problem. Him and Christian Fulton are like Treylon Burks offseason 2022 belly soft. Like they are soft as fuck right now. And maybe that we've seen Christian Fulton not be that guy. We've seen Treylon Burks in singular plays not be that guy. But he has a real problem standing up. He's got like Justin Hunter. Justin Hunter, whenever he'd catch a pass, he'd be like Bambi on ice and couldn't keep his balance. Like he couldn't stay up and catch the pass. And he's doing the same thing. And this is not first round. And listen, he was a first round prospect through and through. Every team thought he was a first-round prospect. Every scout thought he was a first-round prospect. So this isn't a mis-scouting issue, in my opinion. This is a player issue. This is a Treylon Burks issue. And I don't see the hog in him. There is no hog in him. And he goes and hunts hogs, and he should be a killer, right? He should be a killer on the field. He should be a guy that takes over games. And we have not really seen that on any kind of consistent basis. And he goes and does what he does last week. And listen, every wide receiver has one of those games where they just drop a bunch of balls. The problem is he's not catching enough in the other games to make up for it. I mean, he's not done anything like truly remarkable and worthy of being picked 18 overall. And it has nothing to do with AJ Brown, but he is nothing like any successful first-round wide receiver, and I don't see why that's such a terrible thing to recognize. With the caveat that he can turn it around. To me, it's a rule of 3. in most players' cases, I would say in about 90% of players' cases, they should be allowed to have 3 years to find him. And maybe he's going to turn it on the next half of the year because he's staying healthy and he's consistently getting reps. Hopefully that's the case. I hope that he does. But at some point, you just have to be okay with saying, man, Traylon Burks really cost the team on Sunday some key plays. And damn it, he is not worthy of the number 18 pick so far.
Yeah. No, he hasn't been. And I've been one of Burks's biggest fans, I guess. Because I like the potential. I still like the potential. I still think there's ability there, but he's got to stop with these. It just looks like concentration drops too. Because I mean, these are balls that hit him in the hands. We know he has huge hands. We've seen him make crazy catches before, difficult catches, things like that. So like the ability is there. I don't think it's a situation where he's just not a natural catcher of the football. I think he is, but something is not clicking with him, and it's time for that to start clicking, because you look at his peers, obviously like Garrett Wilson's being held back by a catastrophic offense around him, but we saw what he could do last year. Chris Olave is a star. I mean, he is breaking out. He is that guy. He was my favorite wide receiver in that class, but he is turning out to be that guy. And like you're finding out like who these guys are, I feel like in year two, and it's time for Burks to come on. Like it is, you can't baby him for 3 years and say and make all the excuses and he didn't have a great offense around him. Garrett Wilson didn't have a great offense around him last year either. He still produced. He still had big games this year, big plays this year, even with the collapse of the Jets offense after Aaron Rodgers went down. But Burks has got to get it going, and if he doesn't by the end of the year, I think you've got to just come to grips with the fact that he's not going to be the guy. Like he's not going to be that guy.
You got to come to grips with that. This team needs a left tackle, a wide receiver, and a cornerback. Where have I heard that before?
Yeah. What are their team needs? All of the above. I mean, because that's the thing. I mean, like this, Derrick Henry's in a contract year. Ryan Tannehill's in a contract year. You've got a bunch of the guys on. I mean, even like Daniel Brunskill's in a contract year. Or did he get a 2-year deal? He might have.
I think he's a 1 year with void years, if I'm not mistaken.
But yeah, like
I
all
hope
these
it's a
guys,
2-year deal.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice at this point. But like almost the entire team's on 2-year deals, except for the young guys. And this is again going back to like, I know I got a lot of shit for being Debbie Downer all off season, but this is what I was concerned about. Like that the Titans had no depth. They had no like clear.
Nope, he's under contract
talent
next year, by the way.
Okay, all right, good.
So we're our Lord and Savior, Danny Bruns.
Yeah, so we've got maybe 2 starting offensive linemen available and ready to go for next year. That's awesome. But the part of the problem is that I was concerned about was that we were banking on this idea that Traylon Burks was going to turn into a wide receiver 1. We were banking on this idea that Chig Okonkwo was going to take this huge second-year step. He hasn't taken shit either, by the way. He does not look any better than he did last year. He looks exactly the same, maybe even worse, honestly, because, I mean, I feel like he's dropping
the John Robinson ramifications are just like, my God, they just don't end.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, out of all the guys in their second year, the guy that I feel the best about right now is Roger McCreary, who it does look like he's taken a step forward. But you're banking on all these guys making big leaps forward in year 2, and you're banking on all these backups for other teams, Andre Diller, Daniel Brunskill, Azeez Al-Shire even, coming in and taking on major starting roles and being good at them, and I just was concerned, like there was a lot of Jenga pieces like that had to fit in there, or maybe that's not the right analogy, but there's a lot of pieces that had to work that we just had no way of projecting. Like it was all projection. It was just like, well, maybe in a different role, this guy's going to be better. And that worked out in Daniel Brunskill's case so far. It has not worked out in Andre, and you were never going to go 100%, but they have gone at a lower hit rate Like,
Yeah.
it's maybe 1 or 2. Like, and I haven't been super impressed by Azeez Al-Shire either, which, like, I was a huge fan of his in camp. I thought he was making plays in camp. I was like, he's gonna make a ton of plays behind this defensive line. He hadn't really
They're
done
not really
anything.
asking him to rush. You know what I'm saying? They're just asking. That's what's weird to me is that they're not asking him to rush like they asked David Long to rush. I guess this would have been, I think it was his first game where he even got a pressure, but
Yeah,
he
he had a
hasn't.
sack in this game.
Yeah, but he hasn't been asked to rush a lot, and which seems to me like that's not what he has. That's not what they asked David Long. You know, they asked him to do a lot more. I mean, we're
Well,
talking about he had 1 pass rush snap week 1, 4 pass rush snaps week 2, and 3 pass rush snaps in week 3, and those 3 turned into 2 pressures. But they're not asking him to pass rush a lot. I just found that to be odd right now.
yeah, they really don't want to blitz much, it seems, and they're not. Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're doing it as much with him as they did with Long. And you also aren't seeing the plays. Like, even when David Long wasn't blitzing, I felt like he was pretty much a lock for like 2 to 3 plays per game where you're just like, man, David Long was shot out of a cannon right there. Like, and he's making a play in the backfield or blowing somebody up or making a pass deflection or something. I've barely noticed Azeez Al-Shire in most of these games. Like, every now and then he'll pop up, but he has not been super impressive so far through
God
3
damn it, Taylor
games.
Lewan, you son of a bitch.
What's he doing?
He put up a picture. It's just a picture, no comment or anything, and it's just him being a left tackle, in his
No.
Titans uniform. So that's just going to cause all of us fucking headaches.
Oh yeah. Well, he weighs 225 pounds right now. He's smaller than me, I'm pretty sure. So, yeah, I don't think he's gonna be starting at left tackle for anybody anytime soon.
just
He just
why?
knows how to stir the pot. He's
Just
just
fucking
fucking
why?
with y'all.
Just
Yeah.
hates. Bluegrass Beverages is our sponsor. I forgot to mention them at the top of the show. Mike, Joe Burrow full participant in practice today because of course he's coming to play the Tennessee Titans. Any words of encouragement for the fans out there hoping that the Tennessee Titans overcome their Bengals curse, which is technically maybe an AFC North curse? Mike Vrabel is 3-9 versus the AFC North.
Yeah, I'm not feeling great about it. I feel like this is a bad matchup for the Titans. They haven't been able to beat the Bengals even when they've been playing better. Like I said, Dillard's going to get absolutely brutalized by Trey Hendrickson in the pass rush over there, and I think it's I don't know. I think the Bengals are still a pretty good team, and it did feel like Joe Burrow started to get comfortable on that Monday night game against the Rams. And hey, normally I would be like, well, they are coming off a Monday night game. They're on short rest. That's a little bit advantage Titans. But guess what? The Browns were coming off short rest too. Browns were coming off the same situation and absolutely smoked the Titans. So I'm not sure short rest makes any bit of difference in this game. And yeah, I don't trust Christian Fulton to hang with Jamar Chase
Anybody?
and T.
I don't expect
Higgins
them to hang with Tyler Boyd, Charlie
yeah.
Jones, whoever else may be on their the back end of their depth chart. I just don't trust Christian Fulton. And apparently, I don't know if you've noticed. I didn't notice until someone pointed it out, but Christian Fulton's dad is in everybody's mentions defending him on Twitter, and it's a guy with a purple icon, and it's like KA something. So just so you know, if that guy pops into your mentions, because I called Christian Fulton soft and he made an incoherent tweet at me. But like, if it's Andre Yoshevich versus Christian Fulton, Andre Yoshevich wins every time. If it's Trenton Irwin, who I've never fucking heard of, Trenton Irwin.
Oh, Trenton Irwin made a big catch against the Titans last year. So
yeah, if it's Trenton Irwin, Christian Fulton loses. If it's Charlie Jones, Christian Fulton loses. If it's Mitchell Wilcox, the tight end, probably Christian Fulton's losing. Because at this point, Christian Fulton has instilled nobody with any faith that his fucking yoga works. And it's kind of funny because I was like, well, probably the person that's going to prove me wrong in 2023 in this season is Christian Fulton. And so far, he's proven me right. That's not
Yeah.
good. I don't want him to prove me right. I want him to prove me wrong. The Tennessee Titans do go up against probably the only, like one of the only offensive lines that are just as bad as them.
Yeah, that is the one spot where you're like, okay.
And Joe Burrow does have a bum ankle, but we know that this team does not like to wrap up for whatever reason when they get to the quarterback, whether it's fear of, unless they're going to like do a throat chop, take an elbow right into the quarterback's fucking throat and try to decapitate him like Aziz and Arden Key have done in 2 games this year. But is this going to be the 9-6 game, or is it really just going to be the Cleveland Browns all over again?
I don't know. I worry that it's going to be the Browns all over again. I mean, I guess yes, the Bengals offensive line is terrible. I do think Jeffrey Simmons is gonna. I think the Bengals offensive line is way worse than the Browns. Like I will say that the Browns offensive line actually has some strengths to it. I don't think their tackles are great, but then again, you don't have to be great to block Harold Landry these days. So I do think the Titans will get a good pass rush on Joe Burrow. I think they will make life difficult on Joe Burrow. And look, I mean, you saw like the Rams don't have a great pass rush outside of Aaron Donald, but they were able to get after Burrow a good bit in that game and made it difficult. So I think the Titans will manage to keep it low scoring, and they could win the game. Like they could win because the defensive line takes over. Maybe they cause a turnover and set up the offense well enough to make a play. Maybe the offense is able to run the ball, but I will say DJ Reader's caused major problems. Like they have not been able to run the ball well against the Bengals. At least last year's matchup, they weren't at all.
I mean, can I say something?
Hmm.
I don't know what's going on with this team and its run game. And I'm not saying that Tajay Spears needs more carries or more snaps or anything. And the only reason, the whole game script got out of whack, that's why Derrick Henry didn't get a lot. And I hate to have to say this because I hate being this guy. But the Titans have to establish to run. I cannot believe I'm fucking saying it. They have to.
They do.
They just, something has to happen for this team that Derrick Henry did look good when they ran certain, blocking schemes like zone and duo, whatever. That's not my bag. But you want to go. I can't remember which play was for on Superhorn. The Superhorn put one in, like they called the play, and Derrick Henry gets a chunky yards, and he sees the hole, he hits the hole, and everything. Something's got to happen where you get Derrick Henry going, and it can't be sporadically. You're gonna have to probably lean on Derrick Henry just this year. Like you're just gonna have to until you figure out what the offensive line is and how it could be fixed.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they've got to be able to do something to get some consistency in the offense because there's zero consistency right now. They have so many 3 and outs. They give up so many sacks, so many negative plays. And in that Browns game, they couldn't run the ball to save their lives.
Well, I mean,
and part
Myles
of it
Garrett, man, he was quicker than a fart getting into that line. I mean, like I've never seen anybody. To be honest, I've never seen Myles Garrett look so good. Like he looked tremendous. That is your defensive player of the year right now. I like Micah Parsons, but I think that I don't know how anybody stops him right now.
Yeah, it was an incredible game by him. I will say, I think some of that had to do with Jim Schwartz and him knowing or him having some sort of tell with the Titans offense, because there was plays and it happened multiple times where Myles Garrett is lined up. He waits until after Tannehill has, gotten into his cadence or whatever, to the point where generally there's that time period where Tannehill gets to the line, he looks around, he'll either, can the play and move it, to a different call, or, say we're good and then get into his snap count. Right. So there were several plays where he waited until after that point, after they could change the play, and then he jumped down a gap, almost like he knew what play was coming, and just shot inside. Like there was one where like it was a run to the right, and it was a zone run, and he jumped inside of Trevon Wesco, and there was just zero angle. Like Wesco tried to get a hand on him. There was no way he was going to block Myles Garrett because he'd already jumped inside. He was already up in the 2-point stance. He was like moving towards the ball before the snap even happened. So like all Wesco could do was like try to shove him like from behind. But I mean, he was immediately in the backfield, like nothing. So I almost feel like there was something that Schwartz knew that he was able to tell his guys, look, when this happens, they're going here, like, and I don't know if it was the calls themselves. Surely the Titans changed the calls, like with as much as they changed the offense and language and stuff like that. But there was something about the Titans and how they were aligning or something that was tipping off the Browns. There had to have been, because there was too many times that shit happened on tape where it's like, God, it's like they knew the play call. Like, you're just watching how they moved before the snap. And yeah, Garrett was doing that. And Garrett's an awesome player anyways, but it helps when he's got a head start too.
and luckily you don't have that, I guess, with the Bengals, but the Bengals just have it seems like it's like they're like mirror images on the trenches side, but polar opposites on the offensive side. Like, if that makes sense. Like, because even with, I know that Joe Burrow and company has not looked good going deep, but guess what? They get to face Christian Fulton, so they're going to look 10 times better this week, because that's what happens, right? Like, they're probably going to put Jamar Chase anywhere that Christian Fulton is at and go deep on him every time, because that's what I would do. I would keep it simple. Like, this team has made it this Tennessee Titans team has made their weaknesses so glaringly obvious that I would be forcing them to stop me. Like, this is going to have to be the game of Christian Fulton's life if he wants to get a contract, right? Like, this is a guy playing for millions upon millions of dollars in money next year, and he's playing like crap, and it's like he doesn't even realize the football's going on around him. Like, maybe he took this yoga Buddhist mentality a little too far, and he's I can't remember his name on Major League, but remember the Dennis Haysbert's character who, worshiped Buddha, and it took a while for them to get his violent streak going and hitting the home runs and getting mad and angry. Maybe that's what's going on in the locker room, is that Christian Fulton has this Buddhist doll that he's praying to, the statue, and he's taking a vow of peace, and he's just a peaceful guy, so he's just gonna let you ride on by. After you, sir. After you. Oh, please, thank you for beating me. Like, that's just what it feels like right now. It's like not a care in the world for Christian Fulton.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you just want to like shake them and be like, you realize what's at stake here. Your whole NFL career is basically at stake. It's like, this is the difference between you're like going to get a 1-year minimum deal where a team's like, well, we kind of liked you in the draft 4 years ago, but you haven't been able to stay healthy and you haven't been very good when you've been on the field. But maybe we'll bring you into camp, or like he could get a real contract. And yeah, it's not going well. And part of me wonders, like, is he still dealing with the hamstring issue and trying to play through it to stay on the field? And that's part of the reason he doesn't look very good right now. But then again, like, it doesn't really matter at this point, right? Like, it doesn't matter why he's not playing well. It's just that he's not playing well. And the injury thing has been too frequent and too often. And, we have no reason to believe it won't happen again at some point this season. So, yeah, it's hard to have a lot of hope there.
At least for this Bengals game, right? Maybe you get a little bit of hope back for the Colts game. So I ask you, Mike, score prediction, Bengals versus Titans.
I'm going to go 21-9 Bengals.
I'm going to go 19-17 Titans.
Right.
Well, I'm betting on the Titans again. I think they're going to break the curse for whatever reason. I'm an idiot.
I hope you're right.
I'm pretty sure they can break the curse. Oh, stupid. What a stupid asshole I am for choosing the Titans. Have I not learned my lesson? Obviously
Hey,
not.
Titans really bringing a lot of joy this football
Yeah.
season.
Thank you for tuning in. Go to Bluegrass Beverages this Saturday. Free bourbon, free tequila from noon to 4, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even a little earlier. But go to bluegrassbeverages.com or Google Bluegrass Beverages and look for their events tab, and you'll be able to find out what time the free bourbon, free tequila tasting is at Bluegrass Beverages, celebrating their 50th anniversary. Bluegrass Beverages in Hendersonville, Tennessee, 555 East Main Street. For Mike Herndon, at Mike Herndon, NFL on X, paulkarski.com is where you can read his latest piece about trying to fix the Titans O-line, which is a fruitless endeavor because we all know that Andre Dillard will be starting for 17 games. And you can go to X and follow me at EffortsPod. I'm Zach Lyons. And go to Stacking the Inbox where we have all kinds of okay articles. I mean, they're fantastically written articles about a shitty ass team.
Yes.
But they're your shitty ass team. So go support all of our fantastically written content at Stacking the Inbox at podkarski.com. For Mike, I'm Zach. This has been Football and Other F Words, and you have just been effed.